Devin,
Yeah.
welcome to the Sales Hacker community, man. We're stoked to have you here.
Thanks. I always love hanging out with the Sales Hacker crew. It's always a good time.
We always love having you on. I legitimately think the past webinars that we've done with you are like at least top 10, if not top five of all time. So for you early birds, 50 people already joined, which is pretty incredible. Go check out those on YouTube as soon as we're done. Type in Devin Reed, Sales Hacker, YouTube. They're really, really good. Also follow this guy on LinkedIn. He produces so much LinkedIn content that is pretty fantastic. So I'm gonna
Showering compliments to start this. Thank you.
that's how we roll at Sales Hacker, man. We've got to get you back on more often.
I appreciate it.
So I'm gonna fill some time here, let people trickle in. Like I said, already 82 people joining us. So for you folks, you lovely people that join at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock PT, right on the dot, uh, open up the chat at the bottom of your screen. Let us know where you're joining from. I myself am from Kenai, Alaska. It is freaking freezing outside. Devin, remind me where you're joining from.
Yes, I always forget that you're in Alaska. You got to remind me today, which you're my only friend in Alaska. So now I have someone in, I would say all 50 states, but definitely don't have friends in all 50 states. I am in, dare I brag, sunny, but still sort of cold San Francisco.
Jealous. I'm
Friend
very
someone in
jealous, man.
Alaska, it's hard not to, the weather is, it's better. It is better.
Yeah, man. It looks like we got folks from everywhere. We got Colorado, Gainesville, Florida, Orlando, Florida, Toronto, San Diego, Chicago, Columbus, Boston, the Netherlands. What time is it? If you had to guess right now, don't look, Devin. What time would you say it is in the Netherlands?
Oh man, I had to think where the Netherlands
Yep, right
is.
now.
Now I'm gonna say three. I would say it's got to be about 8 hours ahead of where I am. Maybe 12. My final answer is 10 hours ahead of me.
Natalie says 6 hours. Devin says 10 hours. Milad said perfect. I think you're right, Devin. I think 10 hours might be perfect.
Wow, I guessed. I just
I think you
I
might be.
just thought of where the East Coast is, and Tel Aviv is like 14 hours. And I'm awful with geography. I educated guess at best.
Pretty close. It sounds like 8 hours. So you were
My
almost spot
gut.
on.
I should have went with my gut.
All right, man. I'd say it's been a couple minutes, 3 minutes. I'd say we kick it off. We're gonna get some folks joining late, but they can always catch up with the recording. Before we do, though, a couple of housekeeping items for you folks on the line. Number one, this is 100% live. So Devin and I can catch up anytime, any day of the week. We're good buds. We can talk about rapport building at any point. Really, the reason we're doing this is for you guys joining us live. You have a really special superpower right now in that you can pick Devin's brain live about anything having to do with rapport building. Um, Down at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a Q&A box. If you open that up, you can ask any of your questions in there, and Devin and I will both see it. So we're going to have like breaks in between Devin's presentation here, where we're going to do some like rapid fire Q&A. So along the way, as we're going, you get any questions, again, throw them in the Q&A box. You can also try chat, but stuff gets lost in chat. So recommend the Q&A box. Uh, it is live. It's also recorded. So if you have to jump off the line for any reason, I know an hour is a pretty long period of time, pretty long investment. Um, Feel free to jump off. We're going to send you the recording within about 24 hours. It'll hit your inbox, so no worries. Um, I think I said three things. That was only two things, but that's all we got to cover. So now I'm going to kick it over to the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Devin Reed. Devin, would you mind giving the folks on the line like a quick background of how you got into sales, how you ended up at such a cool company being Gong, and then what we're going to be talking about today? And then the stage is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I always love hanging out and sharing all these sales insights that I have and that Gong helps provide as well. So, yeah, my name is Devin Reed. I'm currently the head of content strategy at Gong. Before that, majority for about 6 years of my career, I was a salesperson, so an individual contributor. I like to joke and say most of my career was like Inception because I was a salesperson selling sales software to salespeople. And I loved it. And my most recent sales post was at Gong, where I joined as the second sales hire back in 2017 when we were around 40 employees or so. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me. Now I'm part of the marketing team and run our content strategy, which is all the cool Gong Lab stuff you're going to check out, and I'll describe in a little bit. And so, yeah, what's cool about, Gong and the way we like to approach sales insights in our content is, this presentation isn't going to be like anything you've seen before. And that's because the data we're going to look at can't be found anywhere else. You can Google rapport building, you can Google sales tips, and you'll find millions and millions of responses and ideas. Gong is the only one that puts data behind those ideas. And so that's some of the things that we will cover today. And just a quick confirm, Alex, you can see my slide, how to master.
I can see your slide, how to master
Beautiful.
rapport building. Looks like we're in the right spot.
I have started too many presentations without confirming that, getting to slide 14, and someone goes, am I supposed to be seeing something? So I always like to double check. But yeah, so today what we're going to do is talk about how to master rapport building in the era of digital sales. You can call it virtual sales. You can call it hybrid sales. If you're selling to a screen these days, this is for you, which most of us are in some way, shape, or form. But before we do, I like to warm up. And so I want you guys to ask yourself this, and you can put it in the chat. What do buyers care about most when working with salespeople? So put yourself in your buyer's shoes. What do you think they care about most when working with us? Go ahead and throw it into the chat. First one I saw is, are you listening? Someone else put themselves. Self-interest is very true. Everyone is motivated by self-interest. Credibility. Do I like this person? I'm just reading off the chat, by the way. I'm not just rapid firing.
That'd be impressive.
All right, go ahead and throw them in there. All right, so here is what it is. According to LinkedIn's 2020 State of Sales Report, trust is what they care about most. Trust. Now, you might roll your eyes a little bit at this, Alex, and go, well, of course they want to trust me, right? But as salespeople, if we believe this and we know this to be true, we really have to ask ourselves, what are we doing on a daily basis to instill trust with our buyers, right? And often we default to, I'm honest with them. I tell them the truth. I don't lie to my prospects. I keep it real. But here's the thing. As human beings, we often assume that we're being told the truth majority of the time. Malcolm Gladwell, if you're familiar, he wrote a book called Talking to Strangers, and he cited this study where people are able to spot a truth. If you tell them a truth and then a lie, not in that order, but if you tell them truths and lies, humans can only, fantastic, someone put it, no, you put it in the chat there. People are only able to spot a truth. They can do that 84% of the time. So 84% of the time, if there's a truth, they're going to call it a truth and they're going to get it correct. But when it's a lie, they're only able to spot a lie 23% of the time.
That's scary.
So he calls this truth default because what it is, and it's all to say, is that people naturally believe they're being told the truth, right? So we're terrible at knowing we're being lied to. We're great at thinking we're being told the truth. And that's all to say is being honest isn't enough. It's now table stakes if everyone assumes we're being told the truth, right? And so what we're going to talk about today is how to build rapport in a virtual selling environment, because it's how we can fast track a trust-based relationship with our buyers. So here's some of the things that we'll focus on today. First is my personal favorite. I led with my favorite selfishly, is what rapport building is and what it is not. There's a really big misconception there. Then we'll get into nonverbal cues, how you can use visual cues to better communicate and understand your buyer. And then we're going to touch on how to use reciprocity to pull your buyers into your sales cycle like a magnet. So for the folks watching, even if you only add one of these tactics to your approach, you'll not only build trust with your buyers, but you'll differentiate yourselves from the competition. And when buyers trust you and they prefer you, that's when you win their business. All right, Alex, are you ready?
I'm ready, man. I'm stoked.
Good. Have you read, it sounds like you've maybe read Gladwell's book.
I got to be honest, I haven't read it. I just took your
good.
word for it. See, look, I'm gullible just like the rest of us.
It's a really good book. If you're into audiobooks at all, it's actually phenomenally done. It's on Audible, but he does it more like a podcast. So you get some clips of media. It feels a little, I don't know if I'd say interactive, but it has a nice mix up. So you're not just hearing one person speak at you for 7 hours.
It's going in the cart.
Good. Okay, so let's talk about how to build rapport. And before we do, I'm going to tell you guys a little story. So, my grandfather he was a field sales rep for 3M back in the 90s. 3M is like they make a lot of different things, but he was in the medical team, and so he would drive around to through the LA area, visit doctors' offices, and sell them various medical equipment. And he was the definition of a people person. His superpower was building relationships within seconds of meeting somebody. He knew and remembered everything about his clients. If their kids went to school, he knew which school and what they were studying. If you took them out to dinner, he knew what they ordered. If how they liked their steak, to if they liked fish or salad. And he even remembered people's birthdays and would send them holiday cards, even the folks that didn't buy from him. That's how thoughtful that he was. And I remember when I was younger, he had just gotten home from a road trip, and I asked him, how come people let him bother them at work? Wasn't that annoying? And he said, they don't always buy from me, but they always invite me back because they enjoy talking to me. And that's trust and rapport in action, right? To allow someone to continue to have those interactions, to pop by your work and to give you the time of day. Well, here's the thing. As salespeople, we've been lied to. We've been told that people buy from people they like. But the truth is, people talk to people they like, but they buy from people that solve their problems, people that they trust. Now, if you go back to the story, that makes a lot of sense. My grandfather got options, right? He had meetings all day. He had meetings booked. People would allow him to come by, but they didn't buy from him just because he was a cool guy to talk to. They bought from him when he had something that they needed. And I think that's really important to distinguish. And so I distinguish these two things because as a result of this lie of people buy from people they like, what it's caused us to do as salespeople is try to manufacture likability and a sense of trust in the form of small talk. Right. And you guys know what small talk is. It's the weather, which me and Alex did talk about, but I actually care about Alex's weather. It's your weekend plans. It's last weekend's plans. It occurs at the beginning of calls and oftentimes at cocktail parties, when you're introducing yourself to new people. And so what I wanted to do was look at small talk and see if and how it's correlated or relates to success in sales. So before I show you the data and the things what we came up with, I want to show you a little bit about what Gong Labs is all about for those who might not be familiar. So really quick, what Gong does, because it'll make sense what Gong Labs is we're a revenue intelligence platform. We automatically capture all of the different sales interactions that salespeople have, from emails to phone calls and web conferencing meetings, things like Zoom. And what we do is we start to analyze these different interactions and provide insights to salespeople and sales leaders in terms of what's working and what's not, all in the aims of closing more revenue and being more effective and productive. So what we do at Gong Labs is we look at an anonymized data set of all these millions and millions of interactions and start to pull apart and find different things that are successful. So some fun reports we've done are 9 tips to have better cold calls, things you can do on a cold call to be more effective and book more meetings. Another one we did in January was really fun. At least I thought it was fun. Was how does cursing impact sales on your deals, right? So these are the type of things we're doing. And so what we did for this report is we analyzed top performing sales reps and analyzed the use of small talk. So what we did is we took SMB and enterprise reps that are top performers and SMB and enterprise reps that are bottom performers, and we put them in 2 different cohorts. And here's what we saw. Top performers discuss small talk 15% less than underperformers. 15% less, right? Which might be surprising. You might be thinking, what gives? You just told me this great story about your grandfather and how nice he was and how likable he was. But that's because small talk and building rapport are not the same thing. Small talk is surface level. It's pleasant, but it's boring. And it's boring because it's surface level. It doesn't really build much of a connection. And so if you don't really believe me or you're kind of on the fence, think of it this way. Think of your best friends, your strongest relationships, your spouse or your partner, even people you just kind of know. Is your relationship centered around the weather? Probably not, right? Unless you're like, unless you're in, I want to say a weatherman or weather woman, you're probably not too concerned with the weather on a daily basis, right? To that extent. And so instead, those relationships are centered around common interests and like hobbies, sports, shared opinions, content you consume. Those are the things that really generate a true relationship. And so here's what I've come up with what building rapport actually is. Building rapport is developing a connection around a shared interest expressed over multiple interactions. That's what building rapport really is. Now, notice I'm not saying stop small talk. I think there's a limited time and place for it, but it's not going to help you build trust. And if we go back to our beginning of this conversation, it was all about trust because that's what our buyers care about. So, what is small talk good for? Absolutely something. Small talk is discovery for rapport. You can use it to find out what people are interested in and use that for rapport. Right. So I'll give you an example here, right, Alex? So let's say, you get on a call and you're talking to someone and, like, hey, where are you located? And she says, oh, I'm in Denver. Like, oh, cool. That's great. Now, there's nothing wrong, but most people would probably go, what's the weather like in Denver today, right? And she says, oh, it's sunny with a chance of rain. I go, okay, cool. I'm in San Francisco and it's sunny, but it's deceivingly cold. Now, most people kind of stop there, right? You feel that fizzle, and then you're like, okay, let's get into my agenda. Now, compare that to another route where you said, oh, okay, oh, you live in Denver. That's really interesting. I've heard there's a lot of good hiking trails up there. Do you ever go hiking? She goes, yeah, I go hiking all the time. Oh, cool. Who do you go with? Oh, I like to bring my chocolate lab, Lucy. She comes with me everywhere I go. Wow, that's really cool. That's interesting. I also like to go hiking. But I go with my friends because I have a little French bulldog and he can't make it up any hills. So, I also hike from time to time. Now, we'll kind of break scene there, if you will. But which one do you think is more memorable the next time that you talk to this prospect, right? The fact that it was like, the weather that Thursday that you spoke, or the fact that you guys shared over having a dog and liking to go hiking, right? Now, the key there is to loop back to that the next time you talk to her, to talk about hiking, to talk about how Lucy is doing, to share a funny story about your dog if you want. Doing that over multiple interactions is how you truly build rapport and how you really build trust.
Devin did this beautifully with me earlier today. We on our pre-webinar call, we have this call before each webinar. He mentioned that he was going to enjoy a charcuterie board with his wife, I believe,
Okay.
fiance, wife, yeah. And I mentioned that I was having a picnic that very same day, just by happenstance. And then his first question today on today's call was, "How was your picnic?" And it showed. You do feel it. I felt it. It was like, wow, he took the time, the space in his mind to remember, this one small piece of a conversation he had with me last week, and was thoughtful enough to bring it up again. So this stuff does work. And Devin is executing it perfectly.
I had to, as I was thinking about it today, I was like, if I don't bring this up, then I'm a hypocrite. But at the same time, Alex, and we've hung out around, we talk about sales hacker, these events. But I would argue that next time we talk, I bet you activities you do with your significant other are kind of in that top of mind realm of maybe asking me about or talking about, right? We now have this shared interest. And so that's things that you can really build. And then those start to expand to bigger, stronger relationships. We'll pause there. I know I was talking for a little bit, and next is the recap slide. Were there any questions that we might want to jump on, or we want to keep going?
Looks like there's no questions yet. Now that you prompted them to ask questions, we may get a couple.
Sure.
I'm just seeing people saying that they're loving this, agreeing with you. This is awesome. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, good. I'd love to hear it. Well, let's go into the quick recap here then, just for this section. So one is, your takeaway for this is, and I'm sure most of you listening have a call later today. Don't confuse small talk with rapport building, right? Those two are different, but you can use small talk to find common ground and then focus on those shared interests in future interactions. Hopefully the story that me and Alex shared will kind of help resonate because, we love to learn in stories. All right. Now this one's fun. Visual cues. So let's talk about visual cues, right? You guys have heard this. Alex, I know you've heard this. Everyone's heard seeing is believing, right? We know this to be true. It's why we love our sales decks. In sales, we love our demos, and if you sell technology, it's it's our way to take something abstract and making it tangible, making it real. But what if I had presented to you guys like this today? Well, I guess it's not black because I have
You're invisible.
I'm visible, but I'm invisible, right?
You are.
And so imagine if it's black, right? You can't see me. I was just in my empty office. I was missing the office today, so I got this background just for you. And you can't see. So what it is basically is you start to get kind of antsy, right? And you might want to like pick up your phone because the thing on the main screen is now kind of boring. I can't see Devin. I can hear him. There's nothing on the slides really going on. So you start, looking at your phone. And that's because the adult attention span is about 8 seconds long. And that's when you're in person. That's when Alex is an arm's reach away from me, or 6 feet, depending on where we got to, where we're at today. And so, for what it's worth, too, someone told me as I was writing this that goldfish have a 6 second attention span. I don't know how they know that, but the fact that I'm so close to a goldfish and my attention span makes me a little nervous here. But more than ever before, we're used to a really high amount of stimulus. That's kind of where I was going there. And you guys might be familiar with this, Alex. You can call me accountable or tell me if this is true. How often are you working at night, maybe scrolling on your phone with the TV on just in the background?
All the time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All the time. You might be on your phone, but you want the TV on, or you might be working, but I'll let some TV on. It could be the cooking show if you're into the Great British Baking Show, like I am recently, or the Office reruns, or whatever it is you like. It's what I call dual screens. My wife loves this. Has to have dual screen going on. Two sources of input. And so if I had presented to you like that today, no visuals, you can't see me, you can only hear me. How long until you'd lose interest and stop listening to me and put me in the background while you start doing email or some other stuff, right? That's what buyers are up against in our current virtual, landscape. And the chances are, it's tougher to get people. It's already tough enough to get people to show up to your meetings, but you want them to enjoy them and be engaged because you have to get them back. They have to come back. When you go to drive next steps, they imagine themselves, do I want to jump back on the call with Devin? Or was it kind of a waste of time and I actually found myself doing more email than learning or, moving something forward? And so we wanted to take this and start to understand, let's put some data behind this. Let's see if this is true. And so what we did is we wanted to see if video helps sellers build relationships, or in other words, does using your webcam, seeing us right now, help you close deals? So we analyzed over 12,000 sales opportunities to find out the true impact of selling with video in 2020. And here's what we found. Deals are 127% more likely to close when video is used at any point in the sales process. 127%. I think this is one of the largest X percentages of any swing of an activity. And
it's huge. Yeah.
It's huge. It's huge. It really is. I was expecting it to be more, but not this much, when I got the data back. And clearly, it's a massive improvement, and the impact of selling with video is a no-brainer. And the best part is it's easy as combing your hair and flipping on your webcam. Even though I know you don't actually flip on your webcam, click of a button. But now that you know this is something you should be doing on every single call, or at least with every single deal, because then there's a time and a place where phone call might work. So I'm not going to say absolutely have to be on video every single time, but clearly there's a big benefit here. And the reason why is there's, as I was putting this together and kind of putting this report together, there are a ton of studies that show that appearances have a massive impact on how we perceive people. From the clothes that we wear to our facial expressions, we take a lot of meaning at face value, pun intended, I guess, in that scenario. And so I'm not saying you have to, get all your shirts ironed or put on a blazer every single day. You don't need to put on your Sunday best while working from home. But what it is about is, it's not about being perfect. It's about just being human. Letting someone see that there's another person behind the name, behind the screen. So consider visual appearances as a means to building better relationships with your buyers.
Got a relevant question here, Devin. I'm going to surface it if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It's from Paul Gazdick. How do you feel about video in your outreach? Would you consider this a video a visual cue. He's talking about pre-recorded video using something like Vidyard or BombBomb. Um,
Yeah,
Thoughts? Do you use that? Do you see people at Gong using pre-recorded video? Does that
for
count? Does
sure.
that fall under the visual cue category?
I will put a caveat that it is a different analysis. Like when we looked at calls and deals, so it's different than outreach. So I will say that. But I also believe that the essence of the report carries over, right? Which is kind of this slide. It's about being human and showing and connecting in that way. We do use the SD team does use video in their outreach. We had one guy who hit like just blew out. He was in the enterprise team, blew out his number using Drift Video. So we're a Drift Video shop, and I'm a fan of it personally. And so what I think it is about is now me when I receive them, if they're one-to-many video recordings, it doesn't work because it's a template. You're just sending me a video format of a template. So I don't like that. But I do respond to every single personalized video that I've ever received because someone's taking the time, and I feel like there's a person. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm obviously biased. Like this is how I feel, and I agree with this. But yeah, if someone's reaching out, like hey Devin, this is who I am. I saw this reason for reaching out, yada yada, whatever it may say. Even if I'm not interested, I'm going to give them a quick response.
Totally. Love
And
it.
yeah,
Thank you.
Drift Video. It's one of the newer products, I believe.
Just link to it in the chat if you want to check it out, Michael.
Yeah. We're a big drift shop, so we're fans. Vidyard, great company as well. Cool. So let's do this. So I have some examples actually, and here's something to think about. If you're still maybe like, I don't know, like, do I want to turn my video on? You might see the benefit but not be sold on it. Think about this. Would you feel more comfortable? Oh, I've got something funky going on here. Whoa, let's see.
That was fancy. What was that?
There we go. I don't know. I look like I had paint on my computer, which I don't know. But anyway, what I was going to say is, look at these two folks. Who would you trust with your money if you're going to buy a house today? You've
Are you
got
aware?
your life. Yeah, you already know. You already pick it. You're like, I've got my life savings. I'm going to put a lot of it on a down payment. Would you trust the realtor dressed in a blazer or the gentleman on the left who's got a Raiders jersey and he's barefoot with Crocs on? I don't know if you're supposed to wear socks with Crocs. By the way, I don't own a pair of Crocs, but I just feel like that's maybe what he's rocking down there. And so both might be equally qualified, but humans make assumptions, especially about who is trustworthy based on appearances. So let people see that they're dealing with a professional. It's an easy way to gain trust right off the bat. I'm from Sacramento. I live in San Francisco. Shout out to Matt Hartman. Go Raiders, though. Like at the end of the day, it's go Raiders, but not for my realtor. And so that's the benefits of buyers seeing you as the seller. But you also want to get buyers to turn on their video as well, because video is going to help you interpret buyers' nonverbal communication, and that can help you get additional meaning from your conversations. Because I think we jumped ahead. Perfect. Because understanding customers isn't about hearing what they say, but seeing how they say it. There's a few good examples of this, right? And you've probably done this before too, where it's like tone makes a big difference, right? When someone's like, that's great versus that's great. Huge, complete different meaning, but the exact same words, right? And so when you miss the visual, sometimes you can't hear it, but you can see it by someone's body language, right? Are they sitting up straight? And we'll get into some examples here. So I just kind of gave it away. We've got our body language. I'm a fan of The Office, so hope you know Stanley. But is your buyer slumped over in their chair, looking at their second monitor while you're trying to talk to their cheek? Or are they on the edge of their seat, leaning in, hanging on every word you say? Right? There's a huge difference when you can start to see, and that will help you with that conversation, right? You're going to want to adjust on the fly there. Another way someone put it too was being like a stand-up comedian and you can't see the audience. You know what I mean? And it's like you want to see their faces. Maybe you didn't get a laugh, but you got a smile on a joke, right? Or maybe people are empty and you want to, everyone's empty, then you have no idea you're in an empty arena.
You got to read the room. We have a good question from Todd Murphy here. Imagine you're hopping on a call, Zoom call, and you got 3 prospects in the room and all of their videos are off. Do you have any like tips or tricks to get them to turn it on without just saying like, hey, do you mind turning your video on? Or is that it? Is it as simple as that?
I do have tips. We have 2 more examples and a slide of tips. So we're perfect timing. Perfect question. A couple other ones are just facial expressions. I kind of gave that one away on the comedic story. But some real life examples are, did the decision maker scrunch her face when you shared price? Or is she just taking her time to think before responding? Right? Without seeing her, there's really no ways to know. And another one, gotta love Drake. Sometimes we tell people we're listening with head nods. Oh, it's supposed to be moving. I lost my GIF. He's nodding his head. Sometimes we tell people we're paying attention with head nods or head shakes and eye contact. But again, without video, it becomes really hard. And like you said, you're kind of pitching into a void, right? Especially in that group scenario. It's even tougher when there's like 6 sets of eyes on you, or not 6 sets, but 6 eyes on you, and you can't see them at all. It becomes intimidating and challenging. And so I'll say these nonverbal cues are critical to understanding how your buyer's digesting the conversation, tells you when to pause, when to double down, when it's safe to move on, and when to check in with your buyer. So to our question, was it Tom that brought it up? Did I hear that right? Todd?
It was Todd.
Todd. Sorry, I got your name wrong, Todd. Let's get you to lights, camera, commission, Todd. So here are my tips. So first, always turn your webcam on first. Majority of the time, if you have it on first, your buyers will see you and then they'll follow your lead. They'll flip theirs on as well. Right? It can be a little intimidating though. If they don't see yours on, maybe they were thinking about it. They went into the meeting like, I might turn my video on today. But then Alex didn't turn his on. So do I? Nah, I won't do it. I'll just talk to him. Right. The other one is just ask. Hey, Drake, are we doing a video call today? Now hear the tone. It's very important that you hit it on a light tone and see how they respond. If they say yes, bingo, both cameras are on. You can dive into your call. If not, keep yours on. Definitely keep yours on. It's still better for them to see you than for neither of you guys to see each other. And then the last one is don't apply pressure. Some people just won't be comfortable. They won't be in a place where they can do it. Maybe they got a mess behind them in the house and they're like, I just don't want you to see me today. That's okay. No need to make it awkward by putting someone on the spot. They say no, just go, all right, cool. Again, leave it on and just get right into your call.
We got another tip from John Collins here in the audience. Let me know what you think about this, Devin. If they don't have video on, at the beginning of the call, he says, I can hear you, but I can't see you. And like 90% of the time, just that alone gets them to like, okay, I'll flick on my webcam.
Yeah, that's like a little nudge. It's somewhere between asking and like, hey, can't see you. But yeah, that's great too. And again, you just don't want, I think the only like big don't is don't feel like it shouldn't be forceful. Alex, don't tell people to turn their video on. Don't try to guilt people into it because you never know what people have going on that day. You know what I mean? Like you just don't want
in my pajamas, sitting on the couch in my pajamas. Like,
you never know. You never know. All right. So those are the big two. Now the last one is interesting. This is called reciprocity. Now you're probably familiar with reciprocity, but it's not something that we talk about much in sales. But in sales, we call it give get, right? You give me something, you'll get something in return. But it's a little more covert. But what you can do is use reciprocity to ignite action and pull them towards your sales process. So I'll ask you, let's see, oh, here we go. I'm getting my paint again. Let's see. There we go. Well, we're skipping ahead. Perfect. Okay. So Alex, have you seen one of these before? Maybe sent one, maybe received one?
I have. I've received one that was actually exactly this, a $5 Starbucks gift card.
So shout out to Sendoso. We use Sendoso as well. They don't pay me for this, but this is Sendoso. And so what they do is you can send people gifts or gift cards, right? And so this is the classic send your prospect a coffee card. Before a meeting is typically when it happens, right? You agree to a meeting, hour 4 before they send you a card and say, hey, enjoy coffee on me. Have you ever thought about, Alex, why people do this? Other than it's a nice gesture.
Actually, I haven't put much thought into it.
So it's a nice gesture as the surface value, right? Like, oh, this is nice. If Alex was in San Francisco, I'd happily go buy you a coffee and we can go hang out, right? But it's much more than just trying to get good sales karma because it actually unlocks the law of reciprocity. So by accepting this card, you've accepted a gift, a favor, a kind deed of sorts. And as human beings, we are wired with the desire to balance out that social equation, right? You did something for me, I'll do something for you in return. And think about it. It's like, someone goes to your wedding or your birthday party, you feel compelled to go to theirs, right? If someone sends you a Christmas gift, you probably want to reciprocate. You might feel guilty if you didn't get them anything, right? That's what I'm talking about. There's this natural pull that we have to return the favor, even if it's not wrapped up as a favor. No pun intended there. So if you're still on the fence, if I can get my slide here, I'm getting jammed. Oh, it is interesting. I've never seen this before.
There could be some like cool use cases for that, just by the way.
Who knows? Maybe it's Zoom, a new Zoom feature I haven't figured
Yeah.
out yet. So here's this. Think of it, me and you, Alex, we're at a bar. Okay. Back when we can go to bars, or depending on where you live, if you can go to bars. And I order tequila because that's my drink of choice. And I buy you your cocktail. You want a Manhattan, we'll say. I don't know. What do you
Old
like, Alex?
fashioned.
Old fashioned. Okay. I was in the ballpark, I like to say. So we're hanging out. We're having a good time. I bought round one. Okay. Now we're hanging out. We're building rapport, true rapport, no small talk. And we can see each other. We're vibing. Now, both of us finished our drink. And how likely do you think, we decided we want a second drink, how likely do you think you are that you would pick up round two?
100%, unless I'm particularly broke that month.
which is understandable. You know what I mean? It's not but you called it, right? I would feel compelled. I would want to. I wouldn't feel obligated, but I would want to return that favor. So if you
Absolutely.
accepted the first drink, if you let me buy yours, chances are, like you said, a lot higher. And there's a study actually, if you guys haven't read a book, another book review is Cialdini's Influence. There was one of the studies done in that, or cited in that book, where a study showed that including a small gift, much like this coffee card, increased response rates from 18 to 35%. From 18 to 35%, nearly doubling just by adding a small gift. And that's why the coffee card in that previous example is so effective, because aside from the kind gesture, which again, you're still delighting someone, it's still a very kind thing to do, you're also pulling them on a psychological level, right, to get them to join your meeting. I think it's totally fine because you're leading with a nice thing. But keep in mind, it only works if they accept the card. If they don't see the email, or they see the email and they're like, I hate Starbucks, I don't really care, or they're just uncharmed by your gesture, it probably won't work. That psychological lever is not pulled, right? So the offer alone isn't enough. So there's a couple examples you can do. There's, you can use the coffee card to hold meetings. You can order lunch for somebody and have like a lunch meeting. Maybe you meet someone at 11 o'clock and send them a DoorDash, right? They don't have to be expensive gifts. You're not bribing someone with a Gucci purse, right? To sign your contract. You're not buying people new cars. What you are is you're differentiating yourself from the other salesperson they're talking to, right? You're going above and beyond. You're providing a delightful experience, a memorable experience, and showing that you're really fun to work with. Simultaneously, you happen to unlock the law of reciprocity, so you get some benefit on the back end as well. All right, I see a question from Max V. How do you know when to give someone a gift card if you can't give one to each client? What do you make of that question, Alex? Am I missing something? Or
I
maybe
think
Max.
he's probably talking about, yeah, Max, maybe clarify that a bit. I think probably what he's getting at is like budget constraints. He may not have the budget to send a gift card to every meeting booked. How do you prioritize who to send gifts to unlock this law of reciprocity?
I would say prioritize it. If you are in an SDR, position, maybe you've got one or two meetings you need to hold to get to your quota. So I would say maybe those two people. If you're in a closing role, I would say wherever it makes most sense. Like, again, you don't want to do this at every touch point. Like, don't do it before the discovery call and then before the demo, because then it starts to lose its
Power.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's kind of like, oh, it's expected. Alex always sends me a gift card, which is so nice, but you know what I mean? It starts to lose that pull.
Totally.
Does he mean? We're just trying to clarify. We'll clarify that question. If there's any other questions before we head to the wrap up, I'm happy to answer them.
Is gift giving appropriate for prospecting? I would like to implement reciprocity. I think the answer to that is absolutely yes. I mean, the example that Devin just gave of every time you book a meeting, sending them to, a $5 Sendoso Starbucks gift card,
Yeah.
Hey, time to amp up for our upcoming meeting. Just wanted to send you a quick coffee. Looking forward to tomorrow. Something like that, right?
Very, very kind thing to do. I would say too is remember, it sounds like it could be expensive. Not everyone's going to accept.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not 100% accept rate, so you're not going to necessarily spend for every single time you send. The other one for gift giving, I would say our SDR team has done it phenomenally with upfront, like getting on someone's radar. Like, hey, Alex, I saw that you're a Warriors fan. Here's a Steph Curry bobblehead. But then also keep in mind now, if you just send that and ask for a meeting, it feels a little bribey or a little off because there's no connection between the gift and the ask. So it's really, yeah, good question, Rhea. So what it is you want to connect, like, hey, I'm sending this to you because, Steph Curry is all about watching game film and getting better, and Gong is all about watching game film and getting better. So I thought you'd enjoy this gift, and maybe we could spend 15 minutes and I can describe, or, we can just explore how Gong can help your sales team.
That's
To me,
awesome.
that's totally fine. You're going to get shout outs for that. People are going to love that. Right. And so that's totally okay. Bribing is, hey, Alex, I will buy you a Tesla if you sign this deal. That is a bribe. We're not talking about bribing here. We're talking about delighting customers with small nominal gifts.
So again, tying back the gift to your product's value proposition. That's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You really got to tie them together. Absolutely. So, well, cool. If there are any questions, guys, we're actually about to wrap up. So I'm going to do a quick recap, and then feel free to send any questions in the chat or QA, and then we'll read them when I'm done here. But here are the kind of main takeaways. First thing, the easiest thing you can do is turn on your webcam. 127% increase in your win rates. Don't over-index on small talk. Remember, building rapport is discussing shared interests over multiple interactions. Top performers actually discuss small talk a little bit less. And then use reciprocity to pull people into your sales cycle and delight your buyers. All three of these things you can do today. They're very simple things. They're small things that can make a big difference.
This slide right here, point number 2, is actually answering a question we just got from Kyle Gorman. He says, agree, this is great content. His question is, why isn't small talk effective if most of sales is relationship/lead nurturing? And I don't think we're saying small talk isn't effective. It goes back to that quote that you said at the beginning of the webinar, Devin, of small talk is discovery for rapport, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Small talk isn't relationship building.
yeah.
Because, and maybe, I hate to say go back and listen, but there was we talked about it for like a good 5 or 10 minutes, the differences there where, small talk is surface level, but surface level isn't how we build meaningful relationships in sales. And so what you want to do is use small talk to surface interests and shared interests between you and your buyer. So you can use that to really build a relationship.
Gotcha. Kyle was actually Kylie. Sorry, Kylie.
Great name, Kylie. Cool. Any other questions?
Got a question from Eric Frizz. Are you keeping rapport in a database? So I think what he's probably getting at is when you're prospecting, you have so many different conversations going that it may be difficult to keep track of, different details in people's lives. So you can start to build rapport. Any tips or tricks on how to keep track of all those different pieces of information?
Yeah. So I would say this, if it feels like there's so many people you're trying to keep track of and writing it down would help, then write it down. Write it down. There's nothing wrong with that. I think some people feel a little weird, like I'm writing down, like relationships are very human, and now I'm like tracking relationships, and that might feel odd. I've actually read from a few different very successful people that they keep like a Rolodex or like a spreadsheet of people they've met, where they met, and interests or commonalities between them, and that's how they've built a tremendous network. Right. So, it could be short term, like, hey, I just need to know this thing to get this meeting, and that's okay. But wouldn't be weird for Alex to have a spreadsheet and say, hey, I know Devin Reed, this is where we met, this is what's up. Because at another time, maybe he meets someone who's looking for a job and, oh, you know what, I think I know a guy, right? And Devin Reed's that guy. You know what I mean? You can basically use this to either, one, keep your sanity from a memory standpoint, or use it for your relationships.
Gotcha. We got another question from Jeff Lewis. This one's interesting. He sounds like a solutions engineer, sales engineer, and he's not a frontline salesperson, but he's still part of the sales team. He's wondering if there's a way to unlock this law of reciprocity that you can think of in that role, the sales engineer, sales enablement role. So put on your brainstorming hat.
Hot seat there. Really put me on the hot seat.
I know.
What would I do in a solution? Man, I've never been one, and I've never used one. I've always sold relatively straightforward products.
It seems to me that it could be very similar, right? You have a meeting on the books with a prospect. Do the same thing your business development team is doing.
Yeah. You know what, Alex? You could just reframe it a little differently and go, "Hey, if I'm the engineer here, right? I'm the sales engineer. Hey, if I'm on the call, that means the call might get a little complex. Here's a coffee to make sure you don't fall asleep midway through."
Exactly. Yeah, I love that.
Same thing. And now they're like, "Okay, this person gets it," and then they're also they're primed for the potentially complex call you'll have with them.
Mhm. Okay, well, I think we're through questions for now. We may get a couple more before we end here.
Perfect. Well, that is it. That's it for me. Um, Thanks everyone for coming. I really hope you enjoy this. If you like the the sales insights and using data to show some of the do's and don'ts, make sure you follow Gong on LinkedIn. I publish one of these about once, twice a month. We've got, like I said, all sorts of different reports from cold calling to closing to multi-threading and everything in between. So if you like it, jump over and follow Gong on LinkedIn, and feel free to follow me as well.
Just linked Gong's LinkedIn profile in the chat, guys. So go give them a follow for sure. I follow them. They produce a lot of this Gong Labs insights, all these research reports pretty frequently. It's good stuff. Um, Second, what Devin just said, thank you guys for joining, sticking around for almost an hour. This was fantastic. Hope you guys found it valuable. Like I said, you're going to get a recording in your inbox within like 24 hours. Um, and thanks for joining. If you want to continue the conversation, I almost forgot. Shameless plug here. Sales Hacker, we actually just added on a community layer onto saleshacker.com. So you can go and join the Sales Hacker community and you can continue the conversation with Devin, with myself, with other B2B sales pros. We just passed 10,000 members in all roles. So mainly individual contributors, lots of business development folks, but also a lot of sales leaders. And solution sales engineers. So definitely go check it out, give it a join, and hope to see you guys on next week's webinars. Devin, thank you so much. This was fantastic. And I'll see you all soon.
See you, Alex. See
See
you,
you,
everybody.
Devin.